Welcome to Native Talk Arizona, presented by Native Health and KRDP 90.7 FM. Later in the show, Lanasha Puwadi talks with K.A. Cobell, author of Looking for Smoke. And Susan Levy continues her conversation with Two-Spirit storyteller Taté Walker. But right now, Susan Levy talks with Turquoise Skye Devereaux, founder of Indigenous Skye, LLC.
I'm Susan Levy, and with us today is Turquoise Skye Devereaux, and she's the founder of Indigenous Skye, LLC, dedicated to revitalizing Indigenous identity and promoting cultural safety. Hello, Turquoise, and welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're super excited that you're here and going to learn more about what you're doing. So before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and your background.
Yeah, so my name is Turquoise Skye Devereaux. I am originally from Montana, so I'm from the Salish and Blackfeet tribes of Montana. I grew up on the Flathead Indian Reservation in western Montana, and partially on the Blackfeet Reservation too. So my mom is Salish and my dad is Blackfeet. And after my undergraduate in Montana, at the University of Montana, I moved here to Arizona to pursue my graduate degree in social work, and have been here ever since. So that was about 6 years ago. And so currently I'm here, and I've been doing consulting on cultural safety and program development for about 8 years now, but I'm really happy to be able to do it here in Arizona. But I do travel all around the nation, and I do a lot of work back in Montana as well.
Very cool. And I know Montana's quite a bit cooler, at least now, than here.
Yeah.
So
right, it is.
quite a difference. So tell us a little bit about your consulting business, Indigenous Skye. What is it that you all do?
Mostly, a lot of my work is facilitating trainings and workshops on creating culturally safe spaces for Indigenous populations. And the cultural safety pretty much means it's an environment where there's no assault, denial, or challenge of someone's Indigenous identity. So that definition actually originally comes from New Zealand with the Maori people. And I learned it in my undergraduate. That's when I started doing this presentation. And then I kind of just went with it because as Indigenous people, you know, we deserve that because we went through hundreds of years where there wasn't spaces, and there continues to be spaces where our identity isn't supported unconditionally. So, and research shows if you support Indigenous identity unconditionally, then we will be more successful in life. And so I facilitate trainings and workshops. I get hired pretty much by any entity that serves tribal communities throughout the United States. And then I also do, which is my favorite part of what I do, I do a lot of program development and also workshops for Indigenous youth on identity, revitalization, preservation, and also cultural confidence. And so I also do things like career nights and film and music camps, really for students to just tap into, you know, skill sets that they want to use throughout their life and in their future career. And working with youth is honestly my most favorite part of what I do. It definitely keeps me balanced in everything that I do in my business.
So I know you're talking a lot about the youth. Do you do things with school districts, or do people contact you for workshops, or how does that work with your programs?
Yeah, so I actually, in the last 8 years, all of the work that I have gotten has pretty much mainly only been from word of mouth, or someone who's heard of what I've done before, or connections that I've had here in Phoenix or in Montana. And so, yeah, people usually reach out to me via email, or if I see them in person. And then also, yes, I do work with school districts. So I've worked with a couple of school districts here in Phoenix. One primarily I work with is Phoenix Union High School District, the Native American Education Program. They're absolutely incredible, and I've been working with them for a few years now. And yeah, they're just so awesome, and the students there are just incredible. And then I've also worked with a couple of school districts back in Montana, the Missoula County Public Schools, and then on the reservation too, where I'm from. So I can provide that those programs specifically district-wide or for specific schools themselves, or whether it's training the, like for example, for Phoenix Union also, not only did I develop programming for the Indigenous youth at Phoenix Union High School District, but I also did a two-part training for all of the social workers that work for Phoenix Union High School District on how to create culturally safe spaces last year. So it's kind of both of what I do, I was able to do with Phoenix Union. So that's been such a great opportunity, and I hope to be doing that in the future too with other school districts. So it's been really good.
And I know, didn't you just run their film camp a couple weeks ago?
Yes.
That's what I thought. So I thought I saw that.
So I actually, a couple of years ago, I was able to write the land acknowledgement for Phoenix Union High School District, and they created a video, but then I wanted to do some summer programming with the Indigenous youth this summer, and Kelsey at the Native American Education Program, she had this great idea of we should just recreate the land acknowledgement video made by the students. And so my brother and his business partner in Montana, they actually own a studio where they do music and film. So I brought them down, and we had a 4-day music and film camp where the students recreated the land acknowledgement video for Phoenix Union High School District. And we don't have the final product yet, but hopefully it'll be coming out soon. So we're really, really excited about that. And the students absolutely loved it, and they were thrived, and they just, their creative ability was just shine through, and it was honestly one of the best things to see.
Yeah, and I agree. Kelsey is great to work with at Phoenix Union. They are great partners, and I can't wait to see the videos. Are they going to put it on their webpage, or what are they going to do with that?
Yeah, you can find it on their website. I'm sure you could just Google it after it's finished, but they will have it on their webpage on the Phoenix Union High School District Land Acknowledgement page, and it also will be on YouTube. But I know they'll probably make an announcement about it, though, when it does come out. So, yeah, be on the lookout for that, because it's going to be really awesome.
Okay, that I can't wait to see. All right, so let's go back to a question. You mentioned about creating culturally safe spaces, I know at Phoenix Union and other places. How do you do that? And you mentioned working with the social workers. How do you train them, and how do they integrate that into the schools?
Every single training that I facilitate, I always go through history from an Indigenous perspective. So I start in the Indigenous era to now. I actually go through the 4 stages of colonization that happens, what we would call settler colonialism, that only is inflicted upon Indigenous people. That's always where I start, because when we're talking about cultural safety, it's important to understand that historical impact that we rarely ever learn in westernized education. So having that foundational knowledge allows individuals to then have a deeper understanding of the complexities of identity. Like, for instance, when I think of me and my brother, even though we were raised by the same people, in the same household, on the same reservation, we identify very differently. And so in order to even support both of us, having that historical context and knowing how we're individually impacted by, our grandmother and our father went to boarding school. And so even just that, understanding how that then is passed down to us, in our mannerisms and the way that we cope with our trauma and things like that, that really is the foundational knowledge to understanding, again, the complexities of Indigenous identity. Because in many cases, we're dealing with the aftermath of colonization and what we would call, historical intergenerational trauma, but we hardly ever not only get taught that history as to why we might be experiencing that, but it's rare that it's really addressed because of those barriers. And we deserve to have, and it's not our fault that our ancestors went through those things. And so it's important for people, especially non-natives, to understand, and natives too, because that's their healing journey, of understanding where this comes from and then how to move forward in a positive way. And so, but for non-natives to really understand also what our community went through, that we rarely ever, our ancestors, or we rarely ever get justice of actually talking about those things. So that's always what I start with. And then I go into a lot of skill development. So how critical thinking skills like self-awareness and self-reflection really help individuals not only understand their own worldview and how it impacts their their actions and their decisions in life, but also how those actions and decisions impact others around you, and how can you incorporate Indigenous worldview and Indigenous knowledge and Indigenous identity into what you do for your work, and also how you just naturally function throughout life. And it's a similar thing when I do it with youth too, though. I think it's important that our youth know what happened to our ancestors and how it continues to impact us. And they're always so inquisitive and so eager to learn more. And it gives me so much hope for the future, because they really rejuvenate me when I get to do it with them, especially creating a culturally safe space, hopefully in that time, for them to really be able to foster who they are and really just feel supported no matter what, that they deserve that unconditional support in their identity. So that's also really special to me when I'm able to provide that for the youth.
So what are the biggest challenges you think that people are facing now?
When people hear what happened to Indigenous people for the last hundreds of years since European contact, a lot of emotions come up, whether it's sadness or anger or guilt or shame or confusion, right? And that is totally normal. And I think some people struggle with dealing with those emotions to the point of actually turning it into an actionable way of functioning, or an actionable way of how do they utilize that emotion then in their work. And sometimes people get stuck there, and that is totally okay, because that process takes a lot of time. And when we think of like the behavior change model, where you have to go through certain stages in order to, that really incorporates that foundational knowledge, and then understanding, having that self-awareness, and then moving into empathy, and then what does it mean when then you're moving into action. And some people take an entire lifetime to learn that behavior change. But it's important, when people are really putting the effort into doing it, it can happen. And sometimes it takes, I've had people who've been through my sessions multiple times, and it is incredible to see the growth that they've had from the first time to the second time. That is really awesome to see. But I mean, some people just really struggle with that, and because everybody has their own trauma as well, and what they experience in life, and they also deserve that support in that process, because it can be really difficult. So I feel like that's one of the things, and we see constantly, when we're working in westernized systems such as primarily education, because that's primarily where I work. We see that curriculum still doesn't include Indigenous people or knowledge or worldview, and also there's rarely ever spaces where we get that support for our identity or who we are. In some cases, institutions don't even want to acknowledge that we exist still. So that is an issue. That systemic oppression and racism is really, really crucial for a lot of Indigenous students, especially if they want to excel in education or really any other system, westernized system that we see within our country. So that's some of the issues that I still see, especially with the youth, but also even with Indigenous people who are trying to work in those systems. So it's really, that's really important to address when working with Indigenous people.
And finally, Turquoise, how can our listeners find more information about Indigenous Skye, and how can they contact you?
Definitely. So you can visit my website at indigenoussky.com. And also you can find me on Instagram with my username is Indigenous Skye, just spelled out like that, and all lowercase. And yeah, go ahead and follow me and reach out if you have any questions about trainings, workshops, or really just want to have a conversation on how to create culturally safe spaces for Indigenous populations.
Very cool. Let me ask, Indigenous Skye, does that have an E on the end?
Oh, yes, it does, actually. Yeah, so Indigenous and then Skye.
Okay.
It comes from my middle name, because that's how you spell my middle name as well.
Okay. And then, again, you work with youth and schools. And so if anybody's out there listening and they are interested in working with you, and I know the Phoenix film at Phoenix Union, the film, I heard such amazing things about what you did there. And so hopefully some people will reach out to you.
Yeah, so anyone, pretty much any entity that serves tribal communities, or if you're a tribal community yourself and you want to build cultural confidence in your community, and also, with any programming when it comes to Indigenous youth in education or just in skill set as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking time out of your day today to speak with us, and hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Coming up on Native Talk Arizona, Lanasha Puwadi talks with K.A. Cobell, author of Looking for Smoke. Support for KRDP 90.7 FM comes in part from Native Health, with 2 locations in Phoenix, 4041 North Central Avenue, Building C, near the corner of Central Avenue and Indian School Road, and at 2423 West Dunlap Avenue. Native Health is also located in Mesa at 777 West Southern Avenue, near the corner of Southern Avenue and Extension Road. Native Health provides primary medical, dental, behavioral health, WIC, and wellness services for the urban Native American community. For more information, call 602-279-5262 or visit our webpage at nativehealthphoenix.org.
Welcome back to Native Talk Arizona, presented by Native Health and KRDP 90.7 FM. I'm host Lanasha Puwadi. Today we have K.A. Cobell, author of Looking for Smoke. Hello, K.A., and welcome to our show.
Hello, thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. And to start off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your journey?
Yeah, so I'm K.A. Cobell. I'm an author of young adult thrillers. I'm a mom of 2, and I'm a member of the Blackfeet Nation. And I first started writing probably in my mid-20s. I had started reading for fun again after I finished all my schooling, and I rediscovered a love for young adult books at that time. And I was working as a teacher at a migrant Head Start, and so we had 3-month breaks during the year. And so I had a lot of time, and because I had been reading so much, I just thought I should try to write a book myself. And so I used that break to start writing, and I've been writing ever since.
Can you tell us about your new book, Looking for Smoke?
Looking for Smoke is a young adult thriller that follows 4 teens on the Blackfeet Reservation as they're grappling with the murder of a classmate who they each had a troubled relationship with. And because each of them were the last to see her alive, they all become suspects. And if they want to clear their names, they're going to have to trust each other, even though one of them could be the murderer. And it also shines a light on the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women while bringing in a lot of hope and heart.
Wow. And what was the inspiration behind the story?
The idea for Looking for Smoke first came to me because I really wanted to write Blackfeet characters into a book. You know, I saw so few Native American characters growing up, and I don't think I ever saw a single Blackfeet character, and definitely not any Native character that I really saw myself in. And so that's where it originally started. And because I am a thriller writer, I knew that that would need to bring in the MMIW epidemic. And to be honest, when all this started coming together in my head, I was actually a little afraid to write it because I knew it would need a really careful hand, you know, to bring in such a sensitive subject matter. And I never wanted it to come across like I was taking away from real cases or sensationalizing the real pain that our families and communities are dealing with. But in the end, I just really thought that this was a story I really needed to tell.
Oh, yes, definitely. And you're also bringing awareness to the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls topic as well. And so you did talk about kind of the background of you writing the story. What do you hope the youth will get out of reading this book?
I really hope that the Native youth will be able to see themselves somewhere in Looking for Smoke. I mean, we all have different experiences and traditions, but I really hope that each Native kid will be able to relate to something in this book and to feel seen. And I hope non-Native youth will feel something. I think one of the greatest joys of reading is experiencing something outside of yourself. And this book gives a really beautiful peek into the Blackfeet culture and a really important look into an issue that some of their peers are really dealing with.
And what would you say the age range is for this book?
It's definitely geared towards teenagers, but I really think that it will resonate with adults too. I think the emotions in this book are so relatable to any age. I mean, we have feelings of loss and grief and betrayal, but also a lot of hope and community. And I think all readers will be able to relate to that in some way and to feel for these characters, and then in turn feel for the MMIW crisis.
Earlier you mentioned kind of how you kind of started writing, going back at the beginning was during your break. Has this always been an interest on your mind before becoming an author?
No, growing up, I never thought it would be something I enjoyed. It was never really on my radar. I think it wasn't until I really just found joy again in reading. And there's something about young adult characters that really draw me in. And it's probably the prevalent themes of figuring out your identity and where you fit and what you want to do with your life, discovering your strengths. There's just something about these young adult books that are so relatable, and they really inspired me to want to try to write. And I had no idea I would love it so much. It's just a new passion of mine that came from reading.
And can you kind of give us a background of some of the four main characters that you mentioned? Can you tell us a little bit about those characters?
Yeah. The four main characters, we have Mara. She's a bit of an outsider and a new girl struggling to find her place after moving to the Blackfeet Reservation. And she's going through a lot of questions of, where do I fit? Am I enough? Am I Blackfeet enough? And we have Lauren. She is stuck in the throes of angry grief after her sister goes missing. And she's trying to figure out how to get through this. And we have Brody. He is struggling against change and trying his best to keep things the way they are despite all of these traumas that are going on. And we have Eli, who has his walls up and is keeping secrets to try to protect himself and his family.
And is there kind of an inspiration behind the characters that you chose, like their qualities for the book?
They came from a lot of myself, I think. I tried to draw these characters from a very real place so that they would feel whole and authentic. So I for each of them, I brought in different pieces of me, I guess. I put in childhood memories and family experiences and stories and things from my family tree. I brought in a lot to each of them so that they would just feel wholly realized.
And talking about what motivates you in your career?
I think through time, I've discovered that I have something to say. And writing books is a way I can do that. And I want to keep putting these stories out there. It's like I'm giving myself a voice. And I'm also so lucky to be at Heartdrum, my publishing imprint. And their entire mission is to uplift Native and Indigenous voices. And all the other Heartdrum authors there are so inspiring, and they're bringing so much joy to Native kids and adults. And that really motivates me to keep writing as well, to be like them.
And do you feel that your cultural identity shaped who you are today, and has it impacted your career journey this far?
Definitely. It's shaped a lot of who I am. You know, probably every piece of me is shaped by it in some way. I think growing up with a parent who makes a point to pass on all his cultural wisdom and memories is really special. And I've always had this deep respect and pride for my Blackfeet culture. And that's one of the biggest reasons I wanted to write Looking for Smoke. I wanted people to see the beautiful things that I have seen. And I think that it has been really well received. This book has gotten a lot of attention, and there was a lot of buzz about trying to publish it. And I really think it's because I put so much of myself into this book.
Wow, that's so amazing to hear. And K.A., do you think it is important to encourage our youth to read and write?
Yeah, definitely. I think reading is one of the best ways to experience new things and new cultures, new places. I think it can really open our eyes and connect us to other people and other things. And I think it's also a great way to find your own voice. Like myself, I started writing late, and I feel like it really helped me develop my own voice. And I think it can also help us to realize that we have something to say, and it gives us a way to do that.
And what advice do you have for the youth that are maybe thinking about becoming a writer themselves, or looking to write a children's or a youth book, chapter book? Any advice that you have for them starting out?
Yeah, my biggest piece of advice is to start now. The best way to develop writing skills is to write a lot. It's like trying to grow muscles, you have to use them. And Looking for Smoke is actually the 5th book I have written, and all the books before this one helped me get here. I don't think I would have had the skills to write this specific book if I hadn't written so much before. So that would be my biggest piece of advice, to just start now, write a lot, write different genres, find your specific writing voice, which takes a little bit of time to develop, and also read a lot. When you read amazing books, you get a feel for how it's done, for the different story beats that help make a story so compelling. So, yeah, those are the 2 things to start. Read a lot, write a lot, figure out what it is you want to say and how to say it.
And finally, how can our listeners find more information about your books and also your most recent one, Looking for Smoke, and who can they contact for further questions?
You can find more information on my website, which is kacobell.com. That's Cobell. And you can reach me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, or X, and TikTok. And they're all, my handle on all of them is KA_Cobell.
Perfect. Well, I'd like to thank you, K.A., for taking the time out today to tell us about your most recent book, Looking for Smoke, and also giving us a background in your journey that you went through becoming a writer.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Up next on Native Talk Arizona, Susan Levy continues her conversation with Two-Spirit storyteller Taté Walker. Support for KRDP 90.7 FM comes in part from Native Health, with 2 locations in Phoenix, 4041 North Central Avenue, Building C, near the corner of Central Avenue and Indian School Road, and at 2423 West Dunlap Avenue. Native Health is also located in Mesa at 777 West Southern Avenue, near the corner of Southern Avenue and Extension Road. Native Health's patient enrollment specialist can help you enroll, renew, or update your access information. This can be done in person, on the phone, or via Zoom, days, nights, or weekends. It's fast, easy, and can make a difference in keeping your health care coverage. For more information, call 602-285-9492.
So welcome back to Native Talk Arizona, presented by Native Health and KRDP 90.7 FM. And I'm Susan Levy, and in the studio with us today is Taté Walker, an award-winning Two-Spirit storyteller for magazine outlets, news publications, and anthologies. Taté is the author of The Trickster Riots, a full-length poetry collection. And welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to make two different shows out of this because I think you're such an amazing guest and interesting and have so much to say and educate us on. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your Indigenous background, and your journey?
For sure. My name is Taté. I am Minikanju Lakota and a citizen of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. That's located in South Dakota. We're a sister tribe of Standing Rock, so we're just south of there. A lot of folks know that one. I spent a lot of time in South Dakota growing up. I spent a lot of time in North Dakota growing up, and we've been in the Valley, my partner and our soon-to-be 16-year-old, for about a decade now. So we love it here.
I know that you've mentioned that I know you used to be a journalist.
Yes.
Or not used to, or maybe still are in what you do. But how did you get interested in, writing?
Ooh.
Like writing, I know you wrote The Trickster Riots. So how did you get interested, and why did you do that, and kind of what led you to that?
For sure. So I was a product of divorced parents, so I learned to lie very early on. And so stories were a way to survive for me. I told all kinds of stories, and I don't think any of them were believable, but I enjoyed it. And when people would, what's going on? And, there's a monster on Reddit. Whatever it might be, I just enjoyed telling stories. But that turned into a love of journalism in high school. I had a journalism teacher who was phenomenal and was able to direct a lot of my teenage angst into writing. I had a teacher who totally ripped up a poem that I had written for that class. So I didn't touch poetry after high school because I didn't think I was any good at it until Tonto and the Lone Ranger was coming out, And I had been freelancing for an online publication called Everyday Feminism. And they had been asking me to write about Native and cultural appropriation. So festivals with headdresses and, the laws that were coming out, pro-pipeline stuff to the anti-pipeline stuff to reclaiming land, whatever it might be. And then this Hollywood stuff comes down with Johnny Depp. And they were like, write about it. And I was like, I've been writing about it. Like, there's not much more I can say that I haven't already said over and over and over again. Like, stop mining us for information, for our identities, right? And that's what a movie like Tonto and the Lone Ranger does. So anyway, I, rather than write again with kind of the same research, the same style of just like, stop doing this, white Hollywood, I wrote a poem. And I can't say what it was titled because it's inappropriate, but it was done in anger and passion, and it had Kimosabe in there, and I let it go on my blog, and then I pushed it out to Everyday Feminism, the publication I was writing for. I said, here you go, just take the poem. And overnight it had millions of views. Wow. But and folks really rallied. They could feel that passion and emotion I was expressing as a really frustrated Native parent, right? Just like, why is this continuing to happen? And it still happens, by the way. But that was a launch point of the creative writing versus the journalism. And not saying journalists can't get creative. And I, by the way, still love journalism. I actually was part of an anthology that published earlier this year, and the nonfiction article I wrote is on food sovereignty and body positivity within Indian cultures, Native cultures. Anyway, so I still am active in journalism writing, but the poetry element just allows me to get at topics and conversations that I can't with journalism, because I don't know how to express it in that way, and poetry gives me an emotional space that I can access.
So I know you brought some books with you.
I did.
Do you have a poem that you could read for us?
Yes, I'm so excited. I had submitted a poem to a local press called Little Somethings Press. It's based here in the Valley, and they have a super cute chapbook that comes out based around a topic. And this year's topic was on...
I gotta say, it's a cute book.
The desert, right. And it's all handmade.
I like that. It's beautiful.
Yeah. We're going to have our launch party for this on June 29th at the
cute.
Tempe History Museum. And so my poem, it's a short form poem, is called "The Desert is Abundant with Blessings." And Native Talk, you are the first to hear this ever.
It's an exclusive.
Exclusive.
And a scoop.
The desert is abundant with blessings. The desert is a misunderstood relative, a spike-heeled, hawk-eyed, sunset-lipped auntie who bites as hard as she loves. She demands your caution, laughs at your sunburns and dehydration headache, sneers at your sweat-soaked polo, your flaccid golf clubs and worthless grass. She isn't impressed by your noontime hike in July or your damned dams. You say she's too hot, and Auntie says, leave then. She reminds you it's always been this way. No one invited you here either. But be humble, and she can show you how to harvest the magic of resilient life. Saguaro fruit, cholla buds, tepary beans, mesquite trees and creosote bushes. These medicines and more have seen many ancestors through whatever the plural of apocalypse is. Remember, Auntie is both a parched riverbed and a cleansing thunderstorm. The desert is abundant with blessings, always.
I like that. Oh my gosh, I love that.
Thank
Totally
you.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
It was inspired actually by a local activist from Gila River who was fighting against the 202 freeway when we first moved here. That was still a big undertaking for a lot of local tribes. And
I remember that.
Right. And it was our first summer here, and it was August, and we had just come from Colorado. Beautiful. But, and of course, like many newbies will be like, oh, it's so hot, right? Like the obvious. And this
as we put on our jackets in here.
This activist was like, leave then. And like it was such a like what like a shock, like, and she's totally nice. I love this person. But her point essentially is like, why complain? You're in my people's homelands, and it's always been hot, right? Like this isn't news. this isn't fine print, right? You signed on for this, and it was such a like eye opening, but also just like totally like how dare I disrespect this place that is abundant with life. I mean, we think of desert, right? I mean, people can talk about food deserts or like resource deserts, and it's like, okay, but the desert is full of stuff, right? Like you go outside and it is just flourishing. It's such a good reminder to be grateful for wherever and whenever you're at.
I love that piece.
Thank you.
That is like an amazing piece.
Thank you.
I think it's incredible. Okay. All right. So I need to ask you, you wrote The Trickster Riots.
I did.
And what is that? I got to ask, like, how long did that take to write?
I'm so proud of that because it's a joint venture, if you will, with my kiddo, who was about 12 at the time. So in the heart of the pandemic, I had been working with my friend who's a publisher, Amber McCrary, who's Danae, and she owns Abalone Mountain Press, the first Danae-owned woman press ever. And she said, I've heard you you've read your poetry aloud, and I had never published it before. And so she's like, if you have enough, I would love to publish a book. And so I was like, oh, yeah, we can make that happen. And my kid happened to be sitting with us, and we were talking about like cover art. And I was like, I really wanted to be intentional that it's, a artist from the Oceti Sakowin, the Lakota, Dakota, Nakota nations. And we were trying to come up with like, well, name, right? Trickster Riots hadn't yet been concepted, and what image we were going to use. And my kiddo is sketching in the background, unbeknownst to us, and comes up with a very fierce, very fearsome drawing of a spider that we actually use in a different poem. But it was so scary. I didn't think it would. I thought it might turn away some people. So we concepted a new cover, and it became clear that they had other ideas based on the poetry I was writing. And they were coming up with interpretations of the poems in ways that I was like, oh, I did not think of it visually that way. And so Amber, the publisher, said, you know what, let's illustrate this whole book. And so there's full color illustrations in throughout the book. And I love that, this was it was a joint effort, and it was during a time when my kiddo had just come out as trans non-binary. And so the poem sort of took on, and this book took on an element of a relative, if you will, because we put so much of ourselves into it. And actually, when the book came out, my kiddo had made a statement that was like, it feels like a piece of myself is going out to everybody who's got this book. And I just thought, what a great way to express it, because we were very intentional about, like, if my kiddo was frustrated and like didn't want to draw something someday, like we didn't have them draw. There's this idea in Lakota that whatever you're doing, whether it's art or medicine or leadership, if your heart's not in the right place while you're taking action, then whatever feeling you're having will be imbued within that action. So if you're in a negative space, that negativity will transfer to the art you're making, the food you're making, the medicine you're trying to provide. And so you don't want to do that, right? So you have to step back and let someone else take over, or just give yourself space to heal whatever that negative energy is. And so we did that, right? We were like, okay, it's time to step back. You're obviously not in a headspace to create this drawing. It's fine. And so, like, I love that people have this gift from us. And it's gone so far. I'm so excited. I'm actually going to be doing, in my own tribe, the Cheyenne River Youth Project is bringing me out for their Red Can Graffiti Jam, and we're going to have a poetry slam with it this year, and I think it's their 10-year anniversary of that event. So I'm super jazzed, so I get to travel Indian country to teach youth poetry.
How could you purchase the book or download a copy?
Love it.
Since you can't tell me how much it is.
I won't.
But you can tell me where to get it.
You can grab it from pretty much any place that sells books online. But also, if you're here in the Valley, Palabras Bookstore carries it. They're on Roosevelt and 7th Avenue-ish. And what else can you do? Barnes & Noble, of course. I think Changing Hands has it.
Amazon?
Amazon, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd love for you to grab it.
But how did you get started in writing, like, the other, like, for you?
Oh, man.
And not journalism.
Right. So back when I was...
And then you talked about the divorce.
Right. I was back when I was a liar. The storytelling aspect was always something I was into, I guess. Whether it was telling stories verbally to my parents, oh yes, of course, I don't like the other parent, whatever. To writing in. I remember in fourth grade, I wrote a fairy tale that was probably 20, 30 pages of handwritten, just like epicness. And in fourth grade, that's huge, right? And I remember getting an award for that and being like, I'm amazing. So I kept writing and was in journalism in high school. There was a journalism class, a teacher that I actually dedicated part of my book to, because she had such an impact on just believing in me as a writer. So journalism was a place I wanted to go as a career, because I did a native, it was called the American Indian Journalism Institute, and it was foundational. And it was there. They were like the big message was, you have stories to tell, but they're super important because nobody's telling these native stories, right? We need to get out more than just stereotypes, right? Powwows and pottery, like that's great, but let's also talk about laws and politics and land back and whatever issues might be important to us. So that was inspiring to me, to the point of I did newspapers for 5-6 years until I was at the Argus Leader in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, working as a full-time reporter, and had pitched a story about a native business. And the editor tells me, yeah, great idea, except you did that native piece last week, and so we don't want to overwhelm our readers with too many native stories. And, very much had my hackles raised and said, well, by that math, right, that by that accounting, we do way too many white people stories then. I think we do that daily. And but it was such a eye-opening racist experience, right? Like, it was such a, like, what do you mean? Too many native stories, right? One story a week? That's what we can, like. Anyway, so I left full-time daily journalism, but continued to freelance through a variety of different platforms, and even newspapers. Even that newspaper I freelanced for.
So I know that we can purchase the book, The Trickster Riots. I know you're going to be going up north to do your class up at Lakota. So can you tell me if somebody wants to learn more about your writings, or I don't know if you do any like groups or teaching, or if you're all just strictly like on your website or social media, how do people get in contact with you, learn more, or what if they want to chat with you?
Yeah, I'd love you to reach out to me on my website. You can send a message there. That's jtatewalker.com. Taté is spelled like Tate, T-A-T-E. You can also Google me, Taté Walker, and that I come up some of the first searches. But I'm also on Instagram at Walker Imagining. You can send me a DM there. I do all kinds of youth group programming, workshops, and coffee is always good too.
So you'll go out and work with youth and do groups and classes and all of that. That is pretty cool. Like in Phoenix or Arizona?
So I actually have an example of I worked with the Native American Education Program at Osborne School District, and we created a chapbook with their elementary kiddos. And I
with the Amber's group.
With Amber's group.
Yep, with the Amber's group.
Yep.
Very cool. And when was that?
That was during the pandemic, actually. So we did that all online with first through sixth grade. But they did such a good job, and part of it was if they were younger, they did a drawing maybe, and I said, artwork can be poetry too, like if you're into drawing or sketching.
I like the cover also.
And a kiddo wove that as their project for poetry.
So I know you all can't see what it looks like, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful weaving by a child in elementary school, and really cool stuff.
Yeah.
That's pretty great that you do that for kids. And I know along with the LGBTQ, so that I think that's a great thing for the community and for kids that aren't quite sure where their feelings and all of that. I'm sure that's really helpful. And
such a good point. I think some of the magic of being in the position I'm in, not just as a storyteller, but as a two-spirit, open out queer parent even, is the opportunity for young people to have a trusting adult. And I got to tell you, at every workshop I'm at, some kid comes out and tells me, this poetry has, allowed me to know myself better and deeper, and my pronouns are this, or I have another name I go by, or whatever it might be, and that's magic to me. That's medicine to me.
And that's exactly how I would describe it. I mean, I think that you kind of embody this warmth and comfort that somebody could go to you and say that, and they might not be comfortable in other settings or with other people. So I think that's a pretty great gift.
It's so meaningful.
I really appreciate your time. I know we did double today, but I think the listeners are going to really enjoy hearing all that you do, all that you are, all that you give, and all the important work that you do in the community for Two-Spirit, LGBTQ+, and also all of your writing. So thanks for being on and being a guest. I appreciate it.
Wopila Tanka so much for the space. I love being here.
Thank you for listening to Native Talk Arizona, supported by Native Health and KRDP 90.7 FM. Audio editing by Javier Quiroga, and the executive producer is Susan Levy. And I'm host Lanasha Puwadi. We hope you tune in again next week. If you have any questions, please email us at nativetalkaz@radiophoenix.org.